They are called direct action events, and we're starting to see more of them in Portland. Many times the reason for them is unclear. What is clear is that they often lead to destruction of property, concerns about personal safety, and business owners considering whether it's worth it to keep their doors open, especially in downtown Portland. So how can police deal with the problem as Portland tries to come back after the demonstrations and riots of 2020, the COVID pandemic, and rising gun violence? Returning to Eye on Northwest Politics is Portland Police Association President Aaron Schmaus to tackle these issues. Sergeant Schmaus, welcome back to Eye on Northwest Politics.
Thank you for your time, Ken.
Why is what's happening now different from what we saw in the summer of 2020?
You know, the thing that was interesting, or I think the thing that is important to remember about 2020 is we had several things going on at once. There was an outpouring of, frustration in the community, frustration about things that were going on, about policing in general. And we saw daily protests during the day that were carried out peacefully. We had marches, from Revolution Hall. Famously, one of the most famous athletes in the city marched across the Burnside Bridge, and those events were all carried out peacefully. But we also saw during those events that there was a small but very violent group of people who sought to take those events and that community energy and use it to further their own desires. And the real frustration that grew was, there was this co-opting, and many community leaders, Abel Gordley, I remember coming out and saying that this small group of violent actors was hijacking legitimate discourse, and that we were not able to hear from people who had real and legitimate concerns because violence was a tool that was being used. We saw state legislators limiting the ability of police to respond to these violent events because there was this cognitive dissonance about events that are protests versus these direct action events where people are openly saying they're going to go and destroy businesses. We saw judges issuing TROs, which limited the ability for police to record and demonstrate what was going on. And we see that the DOJ has continued to carry out investigations about police response with no real solutions in mind. And so the reality is we must focus on what an event is and codify it properly. Direct action events in Portland have consistently just been violent assaults on random businesses, on random people with no real solutions in mind, and they must be called out, and the people who are carrying them out must be held accountable.
We've always had this element in Portland of people piggybacking on legitimate protests to carry out destruction, whether we call them anarchists or Antifa, direct action groups. Is there any way to head off these groups without infringing on the rights of legitimate protesters?
Yeah, I think it's really important that, the entire city, the people who do wish to engage in protest, people who are making laws, judges who are reviewing, we must all separate the concept of free speech events from violent activity. I've heard some people say that you shouldn't tell people how to protest. Well, the people who are injured or harmed by these crimes have a right as well to tell us how they feel about how their city is going, tell us about what's going on. And we're hearing that more and more from Portlanders who are tired of waking up to violent graffiti, to broken windows, to the inability to go safely through their city. It is important that police have the ability to do their jobs and do it safely. When people engage in violence, and again, going to the very first night of these protests, the very first night, people stormed into an occupied jail and lit it on fire. When people engage in that conduct, the state laws, the policing infrastructure must be allowed to utilize the tools that exist to do the work safely. And we must remember that the officers carrying out this work, they're human beings who are having feces thrown at them, who are having explosives thrown at them, and simply giving them no tools but asking them to go and make these situations safe is not reasonable. So we need to ensure that we give our officers the tools they need to be successful, and we recognize the difference between a legitimate protest and violent activity that is only existing to hurt people.
You talk about tools that you need. What tools were we talking about?
Well, the Portland Police Bureau had a rapid response team that had, less lethal tools. Some of the state legislation talked about kinetic projectiles. and talked about CS gas and other things. And again, there's no desire on the police's behalf to use any force at any time, but we also need those tools that help us accomplish these tasks safely. In the absence of some of these kind of 21st century implements, which help us be able to use force in a way that limits the ability or the potential for injury, really all officers have is their hands and sometimes batons. And we've seen officers around the country either indicted or significantly criticized for just the optics of using those tools. And so we need the tools available to us that we had. We need the public and political support for ensuring that we can respond. We need support from other agencies. We saw, and I think reasonably, other agencies kind of bristle at the idea of coming into Portland for fear that their officers would be kind of caught up in this maelstrom. But we need all of those different pieces at play, and we need to ensure that when officers engage in lawful actions to keep our community safe, that we're not then dragging them through the mud and creating an environment where they're not even safe to walk about their community when they're not even at work because of what we're doing to them. So we need that support for sure.
The last time you were here, we talked about the need for more officers on the street. And we recently had Chief Lavelle on this program. And here's what he had to say about that. With the funding that's already in place, how many officers could you hire right now?
We are authorized 882, so we're down about 100 officers right now, and we'd love to hire them. We did get the authority to increase our public safety support specialists, which are kind of akin to community service officers in many areas. They're unarmed and they're not sworn, but they do help out, and they do free up officers to take other calls that otherwise would have to wait and do some other things. So they're very helpful there. So we're looking to expand that number and expand that role potentially too.
Are we seeing hiring ramp up from your perspective, and how is the staffing crunch affecting officers on the street?
Yeah, I mean, definitely recruiting is improving. My understanding is we're actually hiring 17 police officers here in a week. The real challenge with law enforcement hiring is that it takes time both to get people hired, and then there's a huge backlog in DPSST to get people through. I would encourage the state to continue to consider, can we do regional academies or find other ways to get that process sped up? We have officers that we've hired in the last few months that are still warehoused waiting to go to the academy. There is no panacea to fix what has become an acute staffing issue. But we're seeing, I think, a willingness for people to step forward. I do hear very often from people saying things like, why would anyone want to be a police officer in Portland? Why would anyone want to be a police officer at all? For me, it's important that people understand that we need these courageous men and women to step forward, because otherwise we know where that leads. We've seen what staffing crises do to public safety. When we hear people who are interested in these careers, we need to provide a real description of what that work is, but also encourage them and support them as a community, and understand that Portland is and has always been a beautiful city that is going through a very difficult time, and it's our responsibility to provide opportunities for the best men and women in the country to come and be police officers here, so we can keep our community safe.
Sergeant Aaron Schmautz, thank you for joining me again on Eye on Northwest Politics.
Thank you, sir.